Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to do a deep dive into market concentration in 2024. It was a year dominated by 8 tech giants. You might know them as BATMMAAN.
Yes, Broadcom, Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Meta, Alphabet, Amazon, and NVIDIA, those 8 really were the game this year.
And when we say dominated, we mean it. These companies added a total of $6.2 trillion to their market value.
Which is wild.
That's more than the rest of the S&P 500 combined.
Yeah.
And NVIDIA alone, just NVIDIA, their value went up 178%. That's bigger than the entire market cap of some sectors.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It really highlights the power of tech in 2024. But what's even more remarkable is the unusual technical strength of the whole market this year. The S&P 500 stayed above its 200-day moving average for the entire year. That's really rare. It's only happened 11 times since 1954. And historically, when we see that, it often signals a major shift.
So we're talking record-breaking gains, a handful of companies calling all the shots, and an overall market that seems to just keep going up.
Right.
Makes you wonder, can this last?
That's the big question, isn't it? Well, forecasts predict that BATMMAAN's earnings growth will slow down over the next 2 years, from 33% in 2024 to a projected 18% in 2025, and even further down to 15% in 2026. So even though they've been driving the market's growth, the question is, can they keep carrying that weight if their own expansion slows down?
Okay, so we've got these tech giants. That might be losing some steam. But what about the rest of the market? Could other players step up and kind of fill the void?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. While BATMMAAN might be slowing down, we're actually seeing some strength coming from the broader market. Recent reports show that 75% of S&P 500 companies actually exceeded profit expectations, with over half of them also beating revenue forecasts.
So maybe it's not all about tech after all. Could we be on the verge of what you might call a more democratic market advance, where leadership spreads beyond just those 8 companies?
It's possible. History tells us that these periods of extreme concentration, they don't usually last forever. We've seen this happen again and again since 1930. Things tend to shift, either by market leadership broadening, with other sectors starting to outperform, or by a correction. That brings those high-flying stocks back down to earth.
So it's like a game of musical chairs. When the music stops, someone's left standing without a seat.
Exactly.
But in this case, the ones left standing could be whole sectors. Speaking of historical patterns, didn't you say something about July being a strong month for the S&P 500? Could that mean we can expect more upward momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. Since 1928, July has been the strongest month for the S&P 500, with an average gain of 1.7%. Now, of course, just because something happened in the past doesn't mean it'll happen again, but it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay, so maybe July brings a bit of a summer rally. But let's be realistic for a second. Even with all the positive signs, there's always another side to the story. What are some of the risks we need to watch out for as we head into 2025?
Yeah, you're right. It's really important to be aware of the risks. And this is where we run into a kind of a paradox. The strength of those BATMMAAN stocks, those huge gains they've made, have actually pushed their valuations up to levels that historically have often come before market adjustments.
So their success could actually be their downfall.
Right.
And what about the Buffett indicator? Were we talking about that flashing some warning signs?
Yeah, exactly. The Buffett indicator compares total market capitalization to GDP. And at the end of 2024, it hit 202%.
202%.
Wow. To put that in perspective, anything above 100% is usually considered overvalued, so we're way past that. And historically, these high levels have often come before market corrections.
Okay, so that sounds like uncharted territory. We have potential slowing growth from the market leaders, valuations that are super high historically, and an indicator that's sending out warning signs. But wait, there's one more thing we can't forget. The AI revolution.
Oh, you're right. AI is the big wild card in all this. All those crazy high valuations for BATMMAAN stocks, they're not just based on their current earnings. They also reflect the incredible potential that investors see in AI to transform industries and fuel future growth. It's like they're betting on a whole new technological revolution that's still unfolding.
Which makes things even trickier to analyze.
Yeah.
Because how do you measure the value of something that's still mostly unknown? It's like trying to predict the future.
Exactly. AI is throwing traditional ways of valuing things out the window because it's not just about today's earnings, it's about the potential for future disruption. It's a fascinating and unpredictable element that adds a whole new layer of complexity to our analysis.
Okay, so to recap, we've got BATMMAAN's dominance, a potential slowdown in their growth, signs of life from the broader market, some historical warning signs, and then the AI wildcard on top of everything. Sounds like 2025 is shaping up to be a really interesting year, to say the least.
Oh, it definitely does.
And in the next part, we'll dig into some strategies for navigating this complex landscape and even explore a few different scenarios for how things could play out in 2025.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned because we're just getting started.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some strategies for navigating this kind of market environment. Given everything we've discussed, one approach that seems promising is considering ETFs that track the S&P 500 Growth Index.
Okay, so ETFs, those baskets of stocks designed to track a particular index. Why would these growth-focused ETFs be a good idea in this scenario?
Well, they offer a good balance of risk and reward. You still get exposure to those high-growth companies, like our friends in BATMMAAN, but you're also diversifying. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, you spread your bets across a whole range of companies in that growth index.
So you're not relying too much on any single company. It's like hedging your bets, but still staying in that high-growth space. What about bringing technical analysis back into this?
Yeah.
We talked about how the S&P 500 stayed above its 200-day moving average all through 2024. That's got to be a big deal, right?
Oh, it is, definitely. This kind of sustained technical strength is really rare. And it could mean the bull market still has some legs. However, and this is important, we know from historical patterns that these periods of really strong technicals, they're often followed by tougher market conditions.
So enjoy the good times while they last, but be ready for some bumps in the road.
Yeah, exactly. It's like driving a convertible down a road with some potholes.
I like that analogy.
And that's why risk management is going to be so important in 2025. This isn't a set it and forget it kind of market. We need to be ready to adapt and change our strategies as things develop.
Right. Speaking of changing things, we've talked about a potential shift in market leadership, the AI wildcard, and now's some ways to navigate all of this. But let's get even more specific. Can we paint some pictures of what 2025 might actually look like?
Sure, let's sketch out a few scenarios. Now remember, these are just possibilities. And the most likely outcome is probably going to be somewhere in between. First, our base case. In this scenario, we see moderate returns, but with a lot of volatility. The market starts to adjust to the fact that those BATMMAAN stocks might not be growing as fast anymore, but things don't totally fall apart. Earnings growth is still good, just not as amazing as it was in 2024.
So a bit of a reality check, but not a complete meltdown. What about a more optimistic scenario? Any chance things could really boom?
Definitely. Our bull case is where AI really delivers on all the hype. We see real returns across the whole economy, and those sky-high valuations start to make sense. Imagine a world where AI isn't just a buzzword, but is actually driving real growth.
So the AI revolution actually happens, and it becomes a key driver of the market's success. That would be something. Now, for the scenario nobody wants to think about, what if things go bad?
Right, that's our bear case. In this scenario, that extreme concentration we saw in 2024 unwinds. Either we see different sectors taking the lead, or we have a broader market correction. That brings those high-flying stocks back down to earth. Remember, markets can be unpredictable. And we know from history that these periods of intense concentration, they don't last forever.
So those are our options. Moderate growth with some bumps along the way, AI-fueled expansion, or a possible market correction. That's quite a range. How do we even begin to prepare for all that?
It's a lot to take in, isn't it? And that's why it's so crucial to be flexible and to keep learning. We need to stay informed, adapt to the changing conditions, and be willing to change our strategies when we need to. No single scenario is guaranteed, so staying agile is key.
Sounds like 2025 is going to be a roller coaster. What final advice would you give to our listeners as they try to navigate this crazy market?
Well, remember, the most likely outcome for 2025 is probably somewhere in between those scenarios we talked about. It's rarely just one story playing out perfectly. Usually it's a mix of different things happening. So staying informed, remaining flexible, and managing risk carefully. Those are your best tools in this constantly evolving market.
That's great advice. So we've looked at potential scenarios, talked about strategies, and stressed the importance of staying flexible. What's next?
In the last part, we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts and give you something to think about as we head into the new year.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we've really gone deep on market concentration, potential risks, and of course, the amazing power of AI.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. You know, it really makes you think about how 2024 might be remembered in the history of the markets.
How so? A pivotal year.
Yeah, I think so. On the one hand, it could be the start of something completely new. The AI revolution really kicks in and changes everything. Industries are transformed in ways we can't even imagine, leading to a whole new wave of economic growth.
Wow, the dawn of the AI age. It's
Yeah.
exciting to think about all the changes it could bring, how we live, how we work. It's almost like something out of science fiction.
Exactly. But on the other hand, 2024 could also be the peak of an era. Tech reached a level of dominance we've never seen before. But maybe, just maybe, it also set the stage for its own downfall.
So it's like empires rising and falling, tech's reign could be coming to an end, and something new will take its place. That's a really interesting thought.
It is, isn't it? And which path will end up on AI-powered growth or a shift away from tech? Well, that's the big question.
It's exciting and a little scary to think about all those possibilities. We're definitely on the verge of something big.
Absolutely. And that's why we need to stay curious and informed and keep asking those important questions.
I completely agree. We can't just sit back and watch things happen. We need to actively shape our own investment strategies and be part of the bigger conversation about how tech is changing the world.
Well said. And that leads me to the final thought I want to leave you with.
Okay, I'm ready. A little wisdom to take into 2025.
Think about this. 2024 was the year of the superheroes, with those BATMMAAN stocks leading the way. But 2025 and the years after that will be about all of us figuring out how to use our own superpowers, our knowledge, our ability to adapt, and our willingness to challenge what we think we know, to navigate this complex and ever-changing world.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just about riding the wave, it's about learning how to surf.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep learning, and never lose that sense of wonder.
Well, on that note, we'll let you think about all of that as we head into the new year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive, and we'll see you next time.